Friday night join here at FishEZ. I am very sorry that it was a little rough start. If you're looking for me here on this particular channel, it's because I somehow lost my saved version of the live stream, but I'm here now. Thank you very much if you're just joining or finding me quickly. What we're doing tonight is we're going to take a look at a number of breeding tips, and we're going to discuss some of the things I have found this week. There's a couple of interesting discoveries, and I want to get your opinion on what you think of these possibilities. And also we're going to take a quick peek at some of the exciting things that have been happening in the fish room this week. So welcome to FishEZ, and I appreciate the thumbs up if you do have an opportunity to step in and give me a thumbs up if you like the content, or give me a thumbs down. It doesn't really matter. Any type of feedback is great. And also we're going to take a look at some of the fish or places that I saw today. And welcome. Some of you have just now joining us. Red Laser, Go With The Flow Aquatics, Richard Reynolds. Oh, is that a new handle? Go With The Flow. I like that. Go With The Flow. We have some tanks here that are really into the flow. And Aquadicted, thank you very much. Seems like a good group. Will join us without a doubt in no time flat. To begin with, I thought I would just go through the mailbag, which of course this week I didn't really have any comments that were of notable recommendation for discussion tonight, but I did have some research that I did on a particular species. And hi Steve, welcome. Steve Scheller in the house. This is always a good thing. It's regarding a pistogramma, and some of us may have encountered this situation. And this is when you go to the store and you see, oh, here's a tank, and it's labeled as one thing, but then of course you look at it and you think it's something different. Well, this happened a week ago. We were probably talking about it briefly. And, oh, really? Richard Reynolds, your first video. I'm very impressed. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Comes out at midnight. Maybe I'll be up. I'll be able to watch it firsthand. Now, when I was at the store, local fish store, not just a few weeks ago, there was a situation where the owner had just gotten in two separate tanks. One of them was a pistogramma McMasteri, and the other one was right next to it, and it was a pistogramma viejita. And that was supposedly quite different, but when he called the person, he says to the person that they looked the same. And sure enough, when I looked at them, I thought, well, they both look like McMasteri to me. And I didn't say much at the time because I didn't really know what a viejita was. So it's always good to do your little research, and sure enough, I came up with some very interesting information, and three different sources, and in the discussion groups talk about the McMasteri versus the viejita phenomenon. And what they would say is, in the first post, basically, most apisto keepers worldwide have never seen the true apistogramma viejita alive. In the 35 years of keeping dwarfs, I've seen live specimens only once. Once you see it, it's obvious that it's different from a McMasteri. So then he has a couple of references to look for and how you can tell the difference. That's really great information. In another location on the internet, the information says many commercially bred A. McMasteri are imported into Australia from both Germany and Thailand under the name of apistogramma viejita. Most local fish stores have no idea how to tell the difference between the two, and they only sell the fish under the name it came in from the country. So it's a true case where a lot of times they don't know, and they see it on a list and they order it to be different, and many people might want to get a viejita, but what they're going to end up with is a McMasteri, a version of it, because apistogramma McMasteri has been in the aquarium world for such a long period of time that they have many different specific, shall we say, morphs or kinds of McMasteri. You get the red-shouldered, you can get the red-shouldered gold, you can get the ones that are red-necked. I've even heard that term before because of the red up in the neck area. And these are all different forms or morphs. And so now what some people have done is taken a slightly different morph or looking or slightly different coloration and then labeled it as viejita because maybe they see that in the books. So on the third connection or third reference that I found, it was very interesting. It says this persistent misidentification has been going on for years and shows no sign of vanishing. The fish that had widely available and sold as abejita are almost always aquarium strains of A. McMasteri or a related hybrid. So some specialists speculate that the Pistogramma McMasteri has been interbred with the true abejita to help create very colorful aquarium strains. So there's some hypothesis there. We don't know. And then it goes on to really relate some factual historical information. And then at the end he says, unfortunately, many McMasteri are sold every day as viejita. True viejita are very rare, and it's almost impossible to ever find them in a pet store. And he gives this advice. He says, if you really want to get one, or if you really think that you're looking for one, the best place to find one is somebody who specializes in this particular breed, and they can attest to the fish. So that is so true. And it's like, remember we've talked about a number of times the barbs, the mascara barbs that I bought, and sure enough I get them and they're actually rohanis, or I get them and they're sold as they're actually maybe black spot barbs. They're not actually the actual species that I'm looking for. And then, that just creates a scenario where, who's to blame? The people who sell it, the people who trade in it, or the local fish stores, or the person who buys it unknowingly. I think that there are just many people who don't really care about the difference of being very specific about the species and the coloration and so forth. And it's true, the Dawkinsia genus, if you get black spot barbs, you're getting rohani, you're getting the mascaras, they are very similar. And so if you're just looking for that look, and just to give you an idea of what that look might be, it's right here. So here we have mascara barbs. It's a certain look, and when you look at individuals which are actually very similar in the genus, they look similar at this age, and so you're getting basically you could get any one of them and get something like this. And as they get older, they're still looking the same. But it's not until they really color out as adults before you're going to realize exactly what you get. And so that's why I'm holding my breath. I'm not really promising anything. These are supposed to be mascara barbs, and they do have a slight smudge in the eye, but there is one in here that does not. And so I'm not sure about that one. There it is, right there at the bottom. See, there's no smudge. The others have it, but there's one in here that does not. Now, could that be a suspect fish? Could there be some crossbreeding in there? It's a little hard to know for sure. But down in this group, which is supposed to be tank raised, these guys also, I think there's one that doesn't have a really clear smudge. I think it's that one right there. Kind of big. See it back there? Not much of a black smudge behind the eye. So we'll see. But that gives you an idea of some of the issues that go along in trying to identify fish, and everybody trying to do the right thing. Is fish and things with Lando. Okay, welcome. Thank you. If you've never been a member, or shall we say a subscriber to this channel, please go ahead and subscribe. If you can always unsubscribe later if you just don't want to be a subscriber. But good content is actually dependent on what you're looking for, so what you consider good. If you're looking for tips and tricks of the fish room and fish breeding and so forth, you might find some things here at FishEZ. If you're looking for entertainment, I'm not exactly the best entertainer, and I don't do drastic things with my tanks and spend buku bucks putting in, you know, big, huge tanks with piranha so you can see how they can rip up a piece of chicken. You know, this is stuff that people are doing out there. Welcome, Sandy. I did see you, and Jeff Kane and Shady Grady. I've seen you all logging in. Thank you so much. But I wanted to mention that particular aspect and go on to some breeding tips and tricks, some things we're going to talk about. So I may as well get into the first point. And the first point is, when you're breeding fish, there is something about the number one thing, I think, is your beginning, and that is selecting the right fish to start with. So if you're going to get into a breeding project, please do not think that you're going to just go to the store, get a pair, and then you're going to get a beautiful breeding. Well, it's sometimes the case. I've seen people go to the store, not even with the intent of breeding. They get two fish, and somehow they start populating their tanks, and that's very easy to happen. Like in the case of convicts, for example, you get two convicts. You know, I mean, it's like you get a 50-50 chance of getting a male-female or a female-male versus two males, two females. So 50-50 chance you got a pair, and then you take it, and if you did get a pair, you're probably going to get a spawn, you're probably going to have issues, and people are going to be, what do I do now, and all this. So here is the thing to do. When you select a breeding project, you save up your pennies and make sure you get a specific number of fish to start with. Now, if you get something like egg scatterers. You're going to need, well, the egg scatterers are typically fish that like to, like we saw with the barbs just now, they like to school. They like to hang out together. They feel good together. So what I did was, we started a project up here. Let's just remind ourselves what these are. This is a new species. I have not bred these yet. And we're going to look at them real quick, see if they're in there. Yep, there they are. Hockey sticks. They look like hockey sticks. But they're also known as penguin tetras. But how many do I have? They're a species of fish that like to school together. And so when you've got a schooling fish, they'll be happier when there's a group of them. And I've heard many times people say, like in tiger barbs, get 6 minimum. Well, I have a lot of experience with tiger barbs. We have them in here. We've been breeding them, as you know. And don't get 6. Get at least 18. 18. Get a good number, because those are particularly apt to singling out a single fish in your group and causing them stress until they die. And then one by one, okay, if you only had 6, you will have 5 in no time. Then 4. And then 3. And you'll be wondering, why did I get these fish? But if you get 18, if you get, you know, a good number, 16 say, you know, I like to count in 4, so it's easy to count them 4, 8, 12, 16. If you get them in a group of 16, there is then so many fish in the tank that they have a hard time singling out a single fish in order to really isolate it and stress it out. So that helps. Of course, if you have 16 fish in a tank, you've got to have a tank big enough, and you want to, of course, maintain it by doing water changes regularly. But let's say these penguins, I started with, how many do you think I got? I got 20. So I started with 20. And once 20, I knew that I was going to lose a few. The transition is always another reason why you might lose some. So people get a pair of black rams, for example. They get them home. Within a week, one has died. Now they're stuck. Now they got to go back. And they got to go back and try to get another replacement. They're hoping to get a male or a female. Then they put it in the tank of an established tank where there's already one that's set up house. And so now it's even more difficult to introduce a single one. So what I do is I will often, okay, now if I have more than a few, take what you really want to end up with and then add a few more for what we would kind of say the plus or minus, or shall we say the percentage of loss. So then if you're calculating, you get a percentage of loss, and you're going to lose a few. And I lost out of those penguin tetras, I think three or four I lost. So I have about 16 or 17 left. But since that initial loss, I haven't lost any more. Now, here's the reason why you lose the fish. I could take those same fish and move them from this tank into another tank. I can move them back and forth in my fish room, and I get no losses. But why do you think I'm at the fish store, I bring them home, and there's losses? Well, first of all, number one guess would probably be saying, well, water conditions. Their water is different than my water, and in here, all the water is the same. That's true. That's true. But I think there's a bigger factor. I think the factor is when you get them from the fish store, when you get them from another source, the fish are already, I don't know how to say it, emaciated. They're already been treated poorly. They aren't getting enough food. They're in a tank. Maybe they're fighting, getting the ick, and they're getting the stress, and that could be it. So they're in poor condition to start with, and so you take poor condition fish and then you bring them home. But now I've had them in one tank, and I did lose a few from those transition from poor conditions, and now I start feeding them. I would swear they put on a 1/4 inch in just the first 3 weeks. And they're looking full body. And they're looking good because I'm treating them well, and I'm changing their water, and I'm giving them good food, and I'm doing all this. So immediately they start feeling comfortable. They're feeling strong. So now they're strong, and I can move them around. I can even sell them. I can do good things. But the fact is, I think the biggest factor is the stress involved when they're already in poor condition to start with. And when you take a fish that's in poor condition and you put it through some more stress, that is trying to get it home, that's gonna cause issues. So that's one of the reasons. It's why you would want to start with more fish to begin with than you actually intend to have on hand for a breeding project. What about a case where I bring home cichlids, and those cichlids are going to pair off, and they're going to stay paired off? Maybe it's angels or whatever. Maybe it's, we've had some cichlids, pistogrammas behind me. You saw them at the beginning of this live stream. Yes, those are cases where if you feel like you want to get 1 or 2 pairs, then get at least 50% more than you intend. So let's say I want 3 pair. So, well, mathematically it's easier to say 4 pair. Say you're looking for 4 pair, get not 8 fish, get 4 on top of that. So get 12 fish. Then you might lose one, no problem. You might lose a second one. Immediately you start figuring out what's wrong. You know, you got your water parameters off, you're not feeding them right, or they're not acting, or they're sick, they're really stressed out. But before you get down to the level where you've lost all your breeders, you've already figured out that there's an issue and you fixed it. So you're watching the numbers, and so you have enough. So 9 for Steve. Steve says 9. He likes that number. Good. Because it's like having, I would say that would be like having 6 pair plus 2 males or 2 females extra because they didn't work out exactly 50-50. and one extra fish for just the extra, the oddball. So yeah, out of 9 fish, I might end up with 3 pair. Yeah, so it depends on the species though. If you had, let's say for example, in the case of unsexed fish, you also need to have a number of young ones, and you're getting young ones, and so you just don't know the sex. Now, sometimes they're just sexable, and you'll go to the store, and somebody will say, "Oh, these are all the pistos, and they're selling them for $35 a pair." You go and you get them, and then you take the pairs home, and you realize they're all males. That is one of the suspect situations we have with these apistogrammas. I don't see any females. I don't see them turning yellow. I don't see them with the right body shape. They could very well be all males, and somebody has picked out the females. And when they were raising the fish, the likelihood is, because apistogrammas are notorious for imbalanced sex, the males might be 85% of the offspring of the batch, and there might be just a few females in the whole batch. So what is a breeder going to do? He's going to pick out the females and keep them for himself. And then he says, I got all these extra males because there's just so many produced. And then what are they going to do? Send them off and say, well, these are the right fish, and they're the pretty ones. Okay, but they're all males. So that can happen. Now, on the other hand, some fish are hard to sex, almost impossible, and that happened this week. Now, if you're a member of this club, this channel, if you're a member, you got a couple of extra videos this week, and I know, Jeff, you made comments on those videos. Happens with zebra plecos? Yes, Steve, it does. But also, I think that there's a lot of breeders out there that know, even at a young age, that maybe the way they're growing in the group, they know which ones, the biggers or the smaller, or the males and females, as a percentage, and they will often keep back the ones that they know will most likely be females, and so that does happen. And they can safely say, I don't really know, and it's true. You can't be 100% certain, but you're right. When you go down to the store and you get some zebra plecos, you're going to find out that many of them they're mostly going to be males. And where's all the females? Well, in that species in particular, it may be the smaller ones, and so they were held back. I know this has happened with leopard frog plecos. There was a case, I guess, what is it? There was a case where it was innocently done. All the batch came in, and the person just began to sell off the biggest ones first. And go, biggest ones, the smallest ones, thinking that a person doesn't really want the small ones. And this is what happened. So they ended up in one fish room, and they were almost all males. And then the other person got almost all females because they were later in the purchasing, and that's all they had left because they were the smaller ones. That's what happened, I know, with the L134s, the leopard frog plecos, in a particular case that I know of. And I know the person who sold them, and I know and he didn't know. He didn't know, but that's the way he did. And if I was selling fish, I usually do that too. I pick out the big ones and say, well, these are the big ones, and so they reach the size ready to be sold, and that's what I do. And sometimes that could be a big factor. Yes, and go with the flow aquatics as mentions or something. Yes, there are other factors too. This is just one particular point. It's not just water temperature or pH, because those factors can play a big part of sex determination. However, not all are like that. And I had one case in point. Well, I still don't know the answer. It was the most mysterious thing I ever did. And I was raising Odessa barbs, and I had a batch of about 600 to 800 fish. And in the end, after I was raising the fish, I began to notice that I was getting males and males and males and males and males, and I couldn't believe it. You know, the entire batch was males except for these 3 female-looking Odessas. So I decided to keep those 3 because they were the only females, right? I mean, but most people want the males anyway, so it was a marvelous thing for me because I didn't raise any females. I raised all these males, and then I could sell off the males. People looking for that red fish for their tank, and then it hit me that the probability that those last 3 were female was super low, because the probability of 97%, or even greater in this case because there were hundreds, so it would be even, 99%. If 99% of your batch is male, it very well could be that 1% is also male, because it doesn't make any sense. If there's something that tipped the scales and caused the batch to come out all males, and I don't know what it is. At the time, I've since then, that took place in California in 2018, I believe. No, 2017. That took place in 2017, and since then I've been playing with the water parameters over and over with the Odessas, trying to figure out what I did to get all males. And I have yet today to get something even close to what I accomplished on that moment, because I kept those 3, and sure enough, as I held on to them, they became males also. So it was like, wait a minute. It made sense, because how could you have 97%? Something tipped the balance. So whatever it would have been the same with these last 3, and sure enough, it was true to form. Whatever it was that caused them to be males, they're all males. So it was just too overwhelming. The odds of having just 3 were like impossible. That's statistically how I eventually saw it. So I started thinking about that. Wow. Well, that's the case of the Odessas. There was another example I wanted to give. This was related to, well, it'll have to pop back into my head, because I thought about it a minute ago, and then I wanted to say something. Real quick, just looking at the comments, let's see, we have First Class Fish. These are our Aquatics Universe with Mike B. Okay, that sounds very interesting. Hi, welcome, and glad you could be there. Hatching rams in a low temperature produced a very heavy female group, and balanced hatch is preferred for me. So does that mean that you prefer to hatch in about 80 degree? So do you keep it more like 80, and then that gives you more balance? Because I usually go for with the rams, I try to keep the eggs closer to 80 in reality. And okay, wow, a lot of comments have been made. And welcome everybody. If you're just joining us, be sure to hit the thumbs up, but also thank you so much for joining us, because we're talking about a number of things. Idar Narchive. Well, IN says, I think it's water temperature, but not with all species. It's been proven that pH can also be a factor. For example, I had the Borellii, Pistogramma Borellii, and if the pH is too high, you will get all males, and you'll get a lot of males. They tend to be that heavy, but for a very low pH, you get it down to in a range of 5. If you can breed the Borellii in the pH of 5 water, it will become more 50-50. That's published everywhere. I did some research on that because I had that same situation. The Borellii came out mostly all males with like 5 females. So Robert Lucas. Say welcome to Robert Lucas, everyone, and thank you so much, Robert. I've had a lot of discussions with you this week. I'm looking forward to meeting you when you make it to the Greater Toronto Area, the GTA, and we're going to have some discussions even more, maybe in person when you get here about the Odessas, and appreciate you joining us tonight. So Jeff Kane says, yeah, 80-ish, better balance. Okay, so that's good to know. I'm going to keep that in mind, especially because in the last few batches of rams, we have had more females than males. Sometimes people like it that way because with rams, for breeding rams especially, you know, it's nice to have extra females. Okay, I picked up 20 L134s from Marcel last fall in hopes of getting a good ratio. So, yes, I remember now what the other species is that I'm working with that can be very troublesome. Don't do this. You go to you want to get some lucipinnis, some catfish, and you look at all the group in the catfish group, and you see that there's some really big ones, and you say, oh, those are going to be good breeders. And yes, those are going to be good breeders. They're going to end up being females. In the catfish, the female gets very big, and the males stay a little smaller. And the female carries a lot of eggs, lots of eggs. I mean, thousands of eggs. So that's the way catfish are. Catfish always produce a lot. But do you really want to get a high concentration or high number of females? It's the same with cories. If you put them in a tank and there's more females than males, what are you going to end up with? Very little breeding. If you have a cory tank and you put together a good number of males and a lesser number of females, you'll get all kinds of breeding. And the females are able to lay a lot of eggs, each one. So how do you find a male cory? How do you find a male lucipinnis? They're the smaller ones. They're not as fat, or shall we say, got width or birth to them. So wide berth on those puppies. So same thing, lucipinnis. If you want to have a good breeding colony, you got to have 3 or 4 males and then maybe 5 females. But you can't live with, oh, I'm going to put in a tank and put 1 male and 20 females. If you do that, you'll have very little breeding. And the 1 male is trying to push all the females, and it's like 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. But when you have a good number of males, there's competition between them, and so they're all trying to, and so they really, 2 or 3 males might be chasing 1 female. And that is what induces her to actually go and lay the eggs. So that's why you want to do it. So Steve says, right, high pH, cool water, more males opposite for my females. Opposite. Okay. You're very lucky, Richard Reynolds. He says that Nick will be from Keeping Fish Simple will be given a talk at the Pasco County Aquarium Society tomorrow. Yes, you are so truly right, and I am very sorry to announce that Nick, who originally was going to make it through the Toronto area on his round the world tour, was going to stop in and see us. Unfortunately, things changed, and he's not coming through this time. So Nick, thank you very much for letting us know you were anxious to come see Aqua Malik and FishEZ. Would have been great to meet you in person, and we're sorry you can't make it up here to the north. But if you are in the Florida area, it looks like you have a chance to meet him in person. How nice. I'm sure there's going to be a long line of people who want to see, and that is great that he has a chance to talk. And Pasco County Aquarium Society. Wow, that is very awesome. Yeah, I only found this out today, by the way, because I knew that Nick was coming he'd already been to Dean's Fish Room. He was headed across the United States, and so here we are sitting just north of Buffalo, you know, and actually south of Minnesota. So as you know, we're south of Minnesota here. It's not exactly the Arctic, you know, but it's, well, anything north of Minnesota. Yeah. Yeah, so sad to miss him this trip, but maybe in the future. That is something I found out today. I was kind of disappointed about that. So what did we do today? To change the subject just briefly, I want to get back to my tips. But the next number, I just want to take a little time for a quick commercial, as it were. What happened today is Malik and myself, we headed across from Toronto, headed for London, Ontario, and we stopped in a new store. And this new store, it's called Planted Aquaria. There it is. Met some great folks there, and they're located in Oakville, Ontario. It's an awesome store, and if you like planted aquariums, that is a place to visit. You're just going to be mesmerized. And we were there kind of early, and yet, you know, by I don't know, it was before noon. It was the place was already popping with people, and they were there buying things and doing things, and it was quite busy in Oakville. It's called Planted Aquaria, and do they have a website? Let me see. Yeah, plantedaquaria.ca. So we can maybe get a check. Now, just so you know, they now have black rams from aquarium.biz. So our black rams are now in Oakville, Planted Aquaria. Jump over there. You'll get some right away. There's some really nice ones, all black rams. So that's the little caveat. But I wanted to mention it's a smaller store with smaller tanks, and they have mostly nano fish. They do have various downstairs. Don't forget to see the downstairs. They have a lot of fish tanks down there. And they had beautiful ember tetras. They had beautiful, they even had batis. And they had, what was the other one? Oh, red laser. Is that right? 10 minutes from your work. You were right there. Didn't realize that. Yeah, pretty awesome. I guess you've been there. So they have black rams there now, and they have a few angels. I didn't think their angels were quite as nice as the ones that we provide, and so maybe they'll get some of our angels next time. But be that as it may, there was a lot of nanofish, various ones, and they had diamond head neons, which is quite interesting. At first I looked at them and I said, those are not neons, what are those? And they were interesting. They're like a neon where the blue is kind of centered right on their head, and sort of like a spotlight. It's sort of like fish wearing one of those lights, kind of shining out, but the blue pattern. Yeah, our club does actually first class fish. Our club, that is the Peel Regional Aquarium Club, does record the speakers, and we do have it as different recordings for our members who missed it and who would like to see them at a later time. There's a couple of them I would like to see again. You've seen those, huh, Roman? The diamond head neons? Yeah. And any tips on breeding green laser cories? Well, I'm not the best cory. What we did was we have a constituent in near London, and that's why we were headed out there to take fish supplies and fish out there. And what we have out there is a aquarist who does very well with cories, and he breeds ton of cories. And then what we do is we bring our fish to him, and we take some of his fish, because by spreading out the fish this way, we're able to take, for example, give him black rams, and he can visit some of the local shops out there and let them have some. And then the quarries that we picked up from him, we take back, and then we can let available to the ones around here. His name to the game is, of course, Cool Water Changes. And in his fish room, he's got a little window that he just cracks open. It's kind of cold at this time of year, so it cools down the tanks a little bit, his quarry tanks, and the water is quite cool. And he can do that especially whenever there's a storm coming and he hits, boom, he hits the water changes, and the next day they will go for, sometimes he said, 2.5 months, just laying eggs every day. And he ended up with a ton of quarry eggs. And so we actually took some quarries that we had called FishEZ quarries, beautiful quarry, and they're not doing anything for us, and we're not giving them the attention they need. So we're going to find out if he can breed those, and if he's successful, then that will be an awesome fish to have available. I think of all the quarries, it's one of my favorites because it's just, they got this beautiful bluish coloration with orange shoulder, and very nice. So we'll see if he can get the FishEZ going, and that would be awesome. So now, that was tip number 1. You got to look at your stock to begin with. You got to get a sufficient number to begin with. And getting the right male-female ratio is, of course, extremely important in some species. Tip number 2 is the conditioning. So once you have the fish, like in the case of these hockey sticks, you bring them in. You're not going to breed them overnight. You need to condition them. So what's the best way to condition them? Quality food, and make sure you also augment that with some live food. So baby brine shrimp is the number 1. I also am growing Daphnia using the green water, and I know somebody made a comment about the beautiful green. This is a 2.5 gallon source of green water, and like in our previous live stream, I demonstrated how I harvest from it and how I reestablish it. And I have a 20 gallon down just below that is full of Daphnia magna, and I'm growing them up ever since I was away on vacation in California. I was away for a while from the fish room, as you know, and that kind of decimated my Daphnia collection. But now I'm building it back up, and it's not going to be a problem. But feeding Daphnia and other kinds of foods such as live blackworms or baby brine shrimp or grindle worms is a big factor. So let's take a moment, and I'm going to show you how I'm doing the blackworms. It's a work in progress, so we're going to see how it is. Who joined us? Somebody joined us? Gord? Missed that. Well, hello. If you've joined us, thank you for joining, and I'm going to show you the blackworm setup. This is the blackworm setup. It's sort of based in concept. Oh, the glare is terrible. Let's see if I can, let me turn this off. I'm going to turn off this light right above because that's causing the glare. There we go. Better? You can see maybe a little bit. Still can't see much. This is, what is, oh, it's the things behind. That's behind the tank. I got to put some black paper behind, yeah. Or better, I should put some light. Let me get a flashlight. I'm just going to put my powerful flashlight right on top. There's the worms. They usually jump crazy when the light's shined on them. Yeah, they don't like that. But you can see, maybe that's too much light. You can't see. There you go. So I put sand in the bottom to give them a substrate. And then I also need to make sure the water is kept fresh. So according to Greg Jones, in his setup, who I consider the professional on blackworms, his concept is to keep the water flowing over them, and I don't have that situation where I have a sump. So what I'm doing is I'm just flushing the water to make sure it's kept a decent amount, and I do that very Oh, Sunny G, welcome! Thank you for joining. So glad to see you again. And so what I do is I have an overflow on this little 2.5 gallon, And this overflow allows me to just pour water in here. And then the water will, of course, overflow into the sink. So that's what's happening. The tube goes right down into there and down into the sink. So I can just pour as much water as I want. But I don't want to just pour water and have them go all over the place. That makes a real mess. So I trickle water in by using a airline tube. Airline tube comes up and goes over to a bottle. So it's just sitting in a water bottle. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give them some water. Show you how simple that is. We're going to just take one of those bottles of conditioned water, or free of. These bottles of water have been aerated for 20 or 8 hours, 12 hours, and then I put them in these bottles and let them sit here until I need them. I can just grab some good water. I know there's no chlorine in it because I don't want chlorine to cause any issues with the worms. So then I just fill up my bottle. I do this. I go, okay, all this water. I can do it without spilling water. I throw it in there, and I'm done. Right? I usually fill it up, and that's 2 liters of water, and then it's slowly starting to trickle. And it's not going to go down the bottle like I'm pouring it into the tank, but it's going to just drip straight out. And I think there is a controller. There's the controller as to how much. I want to know how much actually. I just adjust this just this amount, and water is then going to flow into the tank. Now as it flows into the tank, it's going to overflow, right? And that's what the purpose of the overflow is. I can walk away, and I do that all the time, and I just wait, and a minute later the water is going to start going into the holes at the top, go into the first leg, and then the bridge is going to cause it to go to the second leg on the outside, and then when it gets full, you see it's overflowing at this level. So the water level gets above. When this water level is above this water level right here, it starts to flow, and then it goes out. And now we're looking at it, and sure enough, there it is. It's pouring out. So it's dripping out, really. It's not really pouring out, but it's dripping. So it's like a drip system. So I'll do that 2 or 3 times a day. Every time I'm in the fish room, I just fill it up and gives it fresh water. But it doesn't give it a sudden burst of fresh water. There's actually some Daphne in here. This is Moina. You see the Moina? This is a little bit of Daphne that was in here from before. They're attracted to the light right now, and so they're coming up. But this tank does have a little bit of Moina Daphnia, although I haven't been successful figuring out ways to cultivate the Moina in large quantities, so I haven't been focusing on them. So that's how I do that live food. Now, baby brine shrimp, and then down here we have the grindle worms. So the grindle worms, I did put last night. I put a lot of food in there for them because I've seen them. They're really busting out right now. I'm getting so many grindle worms. All that white, and that food was some flake food, brine shrimp flakes, and this is all grindle worms. This is all live food. So if I want to condition my breeders, I can do this, and I can dip this into the tank and condition the fish up. So these fish, for example, I have not had too long, but as I just dip it in there, suddenly now I have fish that are gobbling up the worms, and that is putting meat on their body because basically they were very minimally fed before. Maybe this will be a female. Look how yellow her face is, and she's got a black spot. It might come in, start blackening up. If that's the case, that would be a female. She's smaller than the others, so there's a real hopeful female right there, but I'm not sure. Maybe some of you who know something more about the Panduros, Pandurinis, Epistogramma pandurini will know something about. Yeah. So this is what we're gonna do tonight. I would like to try something with you guys. I'm gonna take, instead of using this for feeding the fish, we're gonna try starting a new culture. Okay. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but we're gonna see. I'm gonna see how easy it is. I'm very curious. Now I've got the stuff here. So what we're going to do is, let me just put the camera where I can demonstrate what we're going to do. Romaine lettuce butts. Oh, that's interesting. I need a container first of all. So I must have, I hope I have a container. Yeah, here's a container. So I take a container, and then this container I'm going to just, this is smaller than the ones I've been using. I'd like to find something smaller, because I don't think I need something so big. Those are like salad dressing. Now this one is from the dollar store, and I poke some very small holes in it. And let's give it a try. But what I use for my grindle worms is nothing for the substrate, no substrate whatsoever, just a piece of filter floss, but more like padding, so filter padding. So I'm going to get a piece of filter padding, and let's see what I got over here in the back of my fish room. I got some here. This is super filter sponge. Looks like it's Chinese, made in China. And you can see I've got a lot of it, but I'm looking for only a certain thickness and a material that will kind of hold the moisture and allow the worms to live in it. So we're going to cut a piece that is going to fit here. So I need a piece basically like that. Okay. Right here. Whoops. Let me get my scissors first. Now what I'm going to do is I can cut this. I'm going to cut two pieces because if it works, I'll have a second piece already cut. Just when I cut things, making one, I want to actually make two or multiple, as to how I do it. So like in the Paramecia kits, when I put the kits together, I sit there, instead of pulling out all the equipment and all the pieces and putting together one kit and then mailing it off, I'm going to actually make a number of kits, like 5, 10 kits, and then put the kits aside. So when there is an order, it's just a quick, take the kit, put it with the Paramecia, and off it goes in shipping. So you've got to save time that way. So I'm going to just put it right here. And I need to go, that's good. Yeah. Okay. So now I've cut one piece out of this thick, looks like 1-inch filter sponge. And this is super cheap to buy a whole thing like this. And I've never even come close to using even a portion of it. Then you'll see that the sponge actually is too thick. So I'm going to break it apart. I'm just going to split it into 2 pieces. There, 2 pieces. One ended up being a little thicker, one a little thinner. So I'll start with the thin one. Now, all I want to do now is put that in the bottom. And I'm going to now put a piece of, this is, I forgot to check to see if I have any more of this. I do. Here's one piece I have. This is a plastic. You get it at Michael's Craft Shop, and it's used for, what do you call that? Macrame? No, macrame? No. What do you call that? Needlepoint. So it's a needlepoint. They use them for making pictures with the yarn going through, but it's plastic, and I can cut it to size. Now let's see if this one I happen to already have cut, and I can just place it right on top, and it's going to look like that. Now the purpose of this is you put the food on top of this, and then they live in the substrate, which is a sponge, filter floss, and then I pick this up and the worms come with it because they are on top of this eating. So then I dip it into the tanks, the worms come off, I take a wet replacement and put it right back on top of the filter floss where all the babies, the eggs, and everything else is, and the worms that stay alive, and then I feed or put the food on top, and I'm done. So this is done, ready to go. The only thing I have yet to do is add the worms. So I'm going to, first of all, moisten this down. I'm going to stick it under water and try to drench it. You know how it is when you take a new sponge filter and you try to get it, this is what happens, is you try to get it, the sink is full of air, so this is still full of air. If I hold it like this, it doesn't drip. Oh, it is dripping. Okay, there you go. So I know it's pretty saturated. So I'm going to put that down on top. Okay, and then I'm going to put this, actually in a minute, I'm going to put the worms in now. How are we going to get the worms? So I'm going to just take, the best way to get the worms out and onto the thing is to take them out of the other containers. Here's one, for example, they've eaten all the food, even though I had it covered with food. So this one, if you take a peek at this one has a lot of food gone, and the worms are still on top. So I'm going to harvest each one of these, and I'm going to put all the worms into the new one. So maybe by tomorrow or in the next week or so, this new culture will have a substantiated, or shall we say, an established worm. So live food, I'm going to take this, I'm going to remove the worms. So the best way to remove the worms, I think, is just to simply get my tray. I have a glass tray. And this glass tray, I'll just put some water in it. I like to, instead of using just tap water, I do like to use, I got fill those bottles up. I have some here. Okay, so put some of this water in. Okay, I'm not going to need a lot because, and then I'm just going to take the culture and I'm going to just dip it in the water, shake it. Now they're in the water. Put that back. Let's take the other one. It's got some food on it, but that's okay because I'm going to put food in it anyway. Even dipping it in water, a lot of the food stays on. So it didn't really come off. This one has a lot of worms. Okay, that worked. Now for tonight, you can see this is quite a bit of worms. That's all worms. I mean, I'm going to now take it out. Let me try using the filter floss. I'm going to pour the worms across the top of this over the sink, so the water, and I know that the water will go through if it saturates. Yeah, solid worms. Take a look at this, see? Solid worms. And then I'm going to set that down flat in my container. Still very wet, dripping wet. And then I'm going to put on the plastic net on top and put food on top of that and seal it up because I don't want it to dry out. It can't dry out. Shouldn't dry out, I should say. And we'll take, I think I'm going to use some flakes like were on there before. And I'm just going to use some of these. I'm just going to use some of these brine shrimp flakes. Don't want to be too big, but okay. This is a half tablespoon. Let's see if I can sprinkle it across. There we go. Now I'm not going to tilt this too much. I will tilt the camera because I don't want it to get out of kilter. There we go. We're going to see if this works. Yeah, there we go. So there you see it. You can see through pretty clear. You got the food on top, worms underneath, and now I'm just going to seal it up with my lid. There we go. Yes, if you're getting gnats in your grindle worms, I've had that happen before. You could try, well, I try very hard to keep them out. It's a war sometimes, but right now I don't have any gnats growing in the worms. Make sure that your lid doesn't not big enough, the holes are not big enough to let the gnats through. So I'm going to let this sit till tomorrow. We'll take a look. If you're a member of this club, I will go and do an update for members only, and it will show the progress of this throughout the week. So that might be very interesting for those who would like to see how it's doing. If this is successful, I will take this one container, and this will be a new culture, and we'll use it at the fish house, or we can sell cultures to people who want to get started in grindle worms. Once you have the culture, it's a wonderful thing because you just keep growing them, and your food that you use can be expired fish food, very cheap expired fish food. So that's something to keep in mind, that you can go with the cheapest food possible. The worms don't read expiration dates, and so you can find that sometimes. And ask your local fish store, do you have any expired food that I can get on the cheap sides for feeding to my worms? And they'll be more than happy to assist you. So let's see what that does. And we'll leave that for tomorrow. And each day I will check on it and make sure it's kept moist. And we'll see if the worms start multiplying there. Now there's no eggs in that material, so I won't start feeding. I'll just keep feeding it and making sure it's moist, but I'm not going to actually take the worms and harvest from them, at least until I can see they're well established. So I hope that was helpful for everybody who. It's interesting. You know, I have not even put any food on this. on this particular one. I harvested a minute ago, took out all the worms, and I just they're back. All the worms are back on the plastic grill because there's a ton of worms down below, and the moment I take the moisture and I dip it into the tanks, the worms come out, and then a whole new series of worms comes now up through into the onto the mat, the little plastic mat. So there we go. Now, tip breeding number 2 for tonight. We talked about the stock fish. We also talked about how many to get. We also talked about expectations. Well, we touched on expectations, but keep your expectations low and be pleasantly surprised if you have success. If you don't have success, don't let that discourage you. It means that something's not quite right. You're going to have to keep tweaking, or it may not be that the stock you have is just going to be compatible with your conditions. Look for fish that fit your water parameters and that will do very well with you. Okay? That's just a side point. But real tip number 3 is to prevent the parents from eating the eggs. Okay? Now, let me put these worms down for a second. Tip number 3 is due to the fact that depending on the species, if you're breeding a species like discus, sometimes they eat the eggs. All right? And this happened this week. I know if you're a member, you also saw the early first time spawning of the curviceps, the Laeta acara curviceps. And just to show you the pair, they're down here. They're looking good. They're a pretty neat pair. They got color. They're very mild fish. I took out the other pair that was in here because this pair was ready to go down on eggs. I could tell they were picking at things, and I put one Furcatus male, an extra I had, as a dither fish, which I think helped a lot. And the male Furcata is not going to be able to withstand the parenting of this pair of dwarf cichlids. But these curviceps, or also known as flag cichlids, dwarf flag cichlids, they did lay the night before last, and within 24 hours they ate the eggs. pH in the ram pair tank is climbing. If the pH is climbing, then it's possible it could affect the outcome. But if you see lots of white eggs, then you know it might have affected. If you don't see any problem with the whiteness or white eggs popping up, it may be okay. Those box filters are Gemco filters. They're large size Gemco box filters. They still sell them. And for me, I got them because Greg Sage uses them. Sponge filters are good. These also help, in my opinion, to kind of clean the water, or shall we say filter the water, polish the water, much better than sponge filters do. Anyway, within 24 hours, this pair had eaten all the eggs. Now, this is a little trick I didn't know, and I had removed the other pair, and they're over here. I think there's one right there, and the other one is over here, as you can see along the back wall, kind of floating away. So there's a second pair. I'm pretty sure it's a pair, and they're going to go down probably. But do your research. If you do research on the fish that you're about to breed, you need to know their characteristics, and it would be great to learn some of the things that other people have experienced. So in other words, I didn't really do all the research because I just got them. I put them in quarantine. I was really, they weren't even in quarantine very long. they were in great condition. They showed no signs. I treated them, but I was pretty laxical in the sense that I just felt that in watching them that there was no issues. Okay. So they ate the eggs, and so when I did the research, I found out that in one place after another, they identified that the American flag cichlid eats their eggs on the first go-round. They recommend you pull the eggs. And I could have done that. I could have, after they were finished, I could have just pulled the rock out. And they laid them on the rock. It was really nice. I should have just done that on the first time. And this second pair, if they ever do lay eggs, I will pull them out of this community tank immediately and let them go. They said that they are great parents, but on the first go around they have a tendency to eat their eggs, but after that they get the idea and they do very well. So what do you know, I learned a lesson there, and I might set them up. I might set each pair up into a little separate breeding tank up here on the top shelf, and just give them their own tank. They recommend to give them their own tank. But also, it's kind of nice to grab the eggs if you can on the first go around, and then I could hatch them out like I do the rams and the angels and so forth, and what do you call it? Instead of naturally letting the parents raise the fry, I can do it the other way. So. That's the sad news, but it's lessons learned. Do the research on the breeding. Now, for egg scatterers, there's several things I've tried. This material here, do I have a piece? Hold on a second. This material here is what you buy. I order it on Amazon, and I use it for the bottom of the tanks here in the breeder rack, and it's quite fine. You can see a tiger barb or a decibarb or one of those is not going to be able to get through. So I cut it a little bigger than the bottom of the tank, and so it kind of fits in. I just set it down inside and kind of bows a little bit, a little tiny bit, and that just secures it in place, because if it's slightly larger than the tank bottom, you know how it is. It kind of has a springy kind of feel to it. It's fiberglass. It's used in barbecuing meat. You put it on your barbecue, and so temperature on a barbecue gets pretty warm, but this will not melt. It's designed for even cooking of your meat. But I'll give you a quick look. You need to get this off the bottom, okay? Off the bottom. So I've used different things. Some people, years ago, we used to just use marbles, and I did that a lot. In my earlier videos, you'll see tanks full of marbles. And one problem with the marbles is that the only ones you can get nowadays are really the clear ones. I guess they're used in decorations and so forth. And the problem with those is that the fish are scared of them. You know, it's like they're like glass. It's like swimming on top of the glass. Also, to get them out, how do you get them out of the tank when the fry are going in and out of the marbles? This is so easy, because I just hook it, I reach down and pull this out, and now I've removed it. So this is ideal. But how do you keep this off the bottom? If this sits on the bottom, the eggs can be laid, and the parents can just come along and feast on the eggs. So the idea is to get it off by an inch or so. I have used different things. I've used pieces of PVC, PVC slices, and I have tried this one. This is a new thing that I think is really good. And when I had the tiger barbs did pretty well. We have tiger barbs now in this tank, and that tank. They're growing up nice, but this is the most recent. There was no tiger barbs in this tank, so I'm going to turn the flashlight on. Let's take a look, see if we see any small fish. I put a trio earlier this week of Odessa barbs, and I have seen a few fry, but they're not free swimming yet. They're sort of like hanging on the glass. Let's give it another day or two, you know? Okay. So now, what I wanted to show you was what I use. And there at the bottom is the material, and you can see it's kind of wedged into the tank, and it kind of folds up. The reason why you have to wedge it is because the female trying to get away from the male oftentimes is being chased by the male, and she'll find a way to get underneath there. If there's a way, she'll squeeze under. So I make sure that there's no way it's tight enough that she doesn't squeeze under. But I'm holding it up with a piece of egg crate. So all I used was a piece of egg crate. The reason for egg crate is because it's full of holes, and so the eggs will drop down and not provide any surface area where eggs can stop or reside, and parent fish can pick on them. So that's what you see there. That's egg crate, that white. But then I thought to myself, I was at the dollar store, and I don't know if you've had the same experience, but the dollar store oftentimes has great things, you know, ingenious things, and you think to yourself, you know, most people go to the dollar store and they're looking for something in particular, and they're looking for a specific product. I go to the dollar store and say, how can I adapt this little device, cheap device, into my fish room? So it's like a treasure trove. I love the dollar store because of so many neat things. I came across something new. Here's what I found. This is you put it on the bricks, you put it along your plants that are growing, and it's repellent spikes. Repellent spikes meaning it's supposed to keep dogs and others from going into the planted area, because you've got these spikes. Now what it is plastic. Now I know these holes are too big, but look at this. If I were to put the spikes down into my tank, let me pull this apart. Look at that. I can set this like that, flat. Let you see it from there, see? Look at that. I can set this down. It's got these spikes, and it keeps it off the bottom, and then it has little spikes here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the bottom of the tank, cheap plastic thing, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this on the top. Voila. So there's my amazing. This is my instead of using egg crate, I can use this, and it's a cheap way. And if you have egg crate and you want to use it, go right ahead. If you can't find egg crate material, which sometimes can be a little hard to source, finding something like this at your dollar store is a win-win situation, because it's plastic, and so it's okay for the aquarium, and then your grill, which is small hole, is not going to allow any of the parents to go through. I'm going to give this a try. We'll see how it works out, and probably there's other uses in the fish room for something like this. Maybe I'll work that out. We'll see. Some of the bigger fish, maybe the barbs, might be able to, I can see some applications for it. But we shall see. And the neat thing about finding something like this is, you know, you're paying $1.50 or something, and yeah, it seems very steady. It's not going to move or it's crunch or anything, and because it's got so many spikes. But we'll give it a try in one of the tanks, and that's the type of thing around here you'll get to see how I do it. On the member channel, I'll be no doubt doing that. The ceramic rings, yes. Okay. Red Laser suggests a ceramic rings. I've tried those. And one of the things that I don't like about the PVC cuttings and ceramic rings and those kinds of things is that it's kind of messy to pull out. You know, you reach down in there and you got to take out each one, and you got to position them just right. And when you put it down, then they get out of place, and you're trying to put, and then you have the sponge filter that you set down on top, and then it has issues if you don't set it down right on top of one of the spacers, because then it pulls down this material down to the floor level where the parents can get to the bottom. You know, what I found is that something like this is so easy. It's you set it in, but when it comes time to come out, boom, it's out. Simple out. And that's what I mean. You know, it's for ease of use. It could mean I can cut some of these and put them in the 5-gallon tanks that I use. And it might work out pretty good. We'll see. So those are great ideas. If you guys come up with some great ideas too, Roman is always looking out for me. Thank you, Roman, for sending over ideas that you find. North Aquatics, thank you for joining us. And it looks good. Yes. Great ideas come from different sources, and many of the things that I use sometimes come from a different individual, and I like to share that. Now, this week we're going to have to stop here because the live stream is pretty much expired, and it was a long day of driving to London today and then coming back, and we had so much going on. So my back is about ready. It needs some rest. So basically, what I'm going to do is, was there anything else I wanted to show you? There's always something to show you. It's always fun to take a chance if you want to look for some Lucy eggs. I don't know when they're going to spawn next. I'm going to go ahead. Let's just go ahead and take a chance that we might see some Lucy eggs. Let's put the camera over here. And I'm going to put the camera down. Then I'm going to get the receptacle. This is what I use. It's that same glass plate. I usually keep it here. Let's go ahead and we're going to jump into this tank. I'm going to reach in. I don't know if you can see it. You should be able to see it. There's a pot there. Right there, the white base. This white base right here, I'm going to pull out. And we're going to pour in here and see if there's anything in there. If there was a spawn last night, the eggs would be there because they take 24 hours. I checked yesterday. So I'm going to pull them out. Okay. And then I put my hand over it because there's marbles in here. I'm going to just dump it. And then this is the same material. I cut it to a circle and there's marbles to hold it up. And then I look inside, just looking in the glass plate to see if there's anything. I see grindle worms. I must have fed them some grindle worms. I also use a flashlight. And no eggs. You will see the eggs. They're so big. They're a good size. So we didn't catch anything tonight. No spawns last night. And I have to check regularly because they have been spawning. And so let's just take a quick look. There's nothing in here. But we'll go and take a look at the spawns that we've had just to see their progress, you know, see how well they're doing. We are feeding with brine shrimp. So this is the first batch we got. They're looking really well. This isn't a quart. They're in a half liter or half quart bottle or vase. These are the more latest ones we saw recently. I think in the live stream last week we had them. So they're about 7 days old now. And their little bellies get pink when I put the brine shrimp in there. I can tell if they need to be fed based on the color of their bellies. These ones, for example, you can see their bellies are quite pink still. I think I fed them earlier today. These probably need to be fed more often, but fewer amounts. Otherwise you get this dead brine shrimp buildup, and I have to clean that out once in a while. I have to make sure. I have to make sure the water doesn't get too bad, but I only give up to quarter to half container water changes because I don't want to be too drastic. The water I use is never dechlorinated water from the tap. In other words, I don't use tap water and throw in dechlor because that's not enough. These guys will know it. You have to take the water for them, and it has to be seasoned water. It has to be. You could use tank water, but I use tap water that's been aerated for at least 8 hours. So the water, all the chlorine has been disseminated, and it's gone out of the water, and so I know it's good and clean. But at the same time, it's water that is got 0 chlorine in it and no dechlor, and that's one of the keys to making sure your Lucipinus are doing well. Okay, this is green water here. There is some Daphne in here. I just have it in a separate container because I wanted to see if I just have more than one place for Daphne because you never know if there's a crash, if it could cause a problem. So it's been really a nice evening spent together, and we've had a chance to talk about a number of things. And I'm going to probably click on several other breeding tips to continue the series next week. And so there'll be some that maybe I missed, or mostly to continue discussing on the breeding tips. We'll also take a look at those Odessas and see if we can find some. I know I saw some in there, so in a week from now they should be free swimming and we should be able to see some. Right now the water's full of shall we say North Aquatics. You know, I wonder why that sounded so familiar. Yes, Connor, thank you so much for joining tonight. Connor was one of the individuals that I stopped on the trip today, and we had a nice chat at the Hamilton Big Owls. So stop in there for Connor at North Aquatics. He has a channel, and I did notice, this is, you know, just to mention to everybody, if you want to check out Connor's I'm thinking, what did I do? Oh, I know. I'm looking for your card. You gave it to me. Here it is. So here it is. I'm so glad you said something, Connor. Connor Davis, and it says Top Shelf Animals. So there's the URL, Top Shelf Animals. He's got a neat picture of a fish, and on this side there's this fish. It's very nice. What kind of fish is that? It's a cichlid of some sort. What fish is that? Based on there, I've got, Connor gave me this beautiful sticker, so we're going to place this sticker in the fish room. Top Shelf Animals. Anybody know what kind of fish that is? If you look at one of my business cards, this is FishEZ. The logo has fish on it too. But if you look closely, you'll see that the fish on this particular logo are not actual fish specifically. They were meant to be caricatures. And Lethanops, okay, Lethanops, we have to check that one out. They're sort of caricatures of fish. This one here, of course, is thank you, Jeff Kane, for posting his channel, Connor's Links. This one is a black ram, but it's not really a black ram that we see. This one has the stripes of a frontosa mixed with a black ram. This one is kind of elongated. It's sort of representative of what you would see as a shall we say, an African banded barb. And then this one is the Odessa barb, but it's a little different. But the red stripe gives you the idea with the dot. And Odessa barbs, the males lose the black dot at the base of the tail. The females retain 2 black dots, but the male, it sort of turns into a smear. So the red smear going across the body. So they're not really accurate, but they're caricatures of in the logo, and I've done that on purpose because, you know, when you stop and think about it, you know, you're talking about your favorite fish, and some people like to use this particular fish to be their logo. But unfortunately, what happens if you change your fish? Okay, maybe it's a goldfish, and then you get out of goldfish and you go into discus, and then people say, oh, it's a discus and that should be your logo, and then they get out of it because they find out it's too involved, and they go and they do guppies. I mean, you know, but I wanted something to show that FishEZ is all about 411, that is information on fish room activities, breeding fish, and it's not really species specific. If I was a dedicated Pisto channel, then there might be need for a Pisto logo, right? But that's the reason. So I kind of liked the logo that from the other place we were at, Planet Aquaria. I don't know if you noticed it, but it was a fish in the water, but a plant growing out. It was all one entity. So it was half fish, half plant. And so that made a lot of sense. They were like, you know, it has a fish logo with a plant logo. And so very nicely done. And I thought it's very unique and very, very well done. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate very much North Aquatics of joining you. And I'm going to check out more of your videos. James. Okay. Like the logo. I want to check out this Lethanops. Yeah. North Aquatics. Now I realize what the mistake I made. Here I'm going off and I'm all mixed up because James, you were the one that I said, oh, you have my middle name is the same. That is my middle name, James. Michael James Beat. And so my mistake. But I did meet Connor earlier, and you are North Aquatics. James from North Aquatics. So yeah, Jeff, it's James Links, not Connor. That was my mistake. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we did meet a lot of people today. I also met at the Hamilton location, and I met Yeah, now you know how fried I am. My back hurts and everything, so I'll have to get it straight next time. But you know what? I'll tell you what, North Aquatics. James, if you just come back, keep coming back every Friday at 9 o'clock, and we'll certainly get it right, and we will appreciate that. We do appreciate having you with us, and we're getting new people all the time. Craig's Catfish Cave, for example, he's one that's we've had since day one. Thank you so much. Some of you have been on the channel for ages, and I do appreciate all of the support, and those especially of you who are members. And there is some interesting things coming up, and I'm still working out those details. But as time goes on, I'll be posting them, videos on a more regular basis than ever before, because there's just so much to cover. Tonight I was hoping to get through a bunch of tips, and I come to find out I could only get through mainly 3 of them with all the detail required to explain it well, and then we'll have even more things to talk about. And then of course I get surprises in the fish room too. I wish I'd pulled those eggs from the flag cichlids, and I would have had a nice batch. But I learn all the time too. I didn't know about the species being a particular egg eater, and I know now, and that's part of the fun of being with fish, because it's never a dull moment and always something new to learn, and that's why I like it so much. No, red laser, those are not my Lucipinus. I did look at the Lucipinus that were there, and I had a talk with him. He's got two sizes, but he says that those are Petricola, which they may or may not be. And just to clarify about that, the Petricola is a very similar species. It is almost indistinguishable except for the size. If you have Petricola, and they truly are Petricola, they will grow bigger, much bigger than the Lucipinus, and that's why they call the Lucipinus dwarf Petricola, because they look exactly the same, they act exactly the same, breeding would be identical. It's just that, and they come from the same lake, but they're from a different part of the lake, and therefore there's one small pore that's on near the gill that makes them a little bit different. So the Lucipinus might or may not, I don't remember which has it, which doesn't. And can they breed together? I believe so. I believe you can hybridize them. But it doesn't really matter. Since they're so similar, they're almost identical. It's almost impossible to tell the difference, except for the size. So I guess if you're looking for fish of this caliber, of this kind, and you go down low, I should say, if you go all the way down to the size and you want the smallest possible because you don't want a huge tank or you don't have a huge tank, get the Lucipinus. Now, you'll see some shops will just call them Petricola no matter what. I have taken fish to the store and saying these are Lucipinus, and then I come back the next week and they've got them labeled as Petricola because that's the label they have. So that's happened too. So maybe they don't believe it is, or maybe they just, that's the only label they have. I don't know. But it's not a bad thing to get one or the other, or to call them one thing or another thing. It really isn't. So thank you all for joining tonight, and I'm sorry for any the mix-ups. And Jeff Kane, as always, comes through as a true moderator. He posts the link to the Fish Fam location for FishEZ, which gives you the calendar information if you want to get it on your calendar, and then you see all the live streams that are coming and going each week, and that is a great place. I've looked at that live. It's amazing. There's probably people who are live streaming right now on other channels. I don't know who I go up against. I don't really know because I'm busy doing my thing, and so just spread the word. The best way to promote this channel is to share what you share the channel with others. And you know, I'm not Father Fish, you know, and so I'm not able to claim that I have as much years of experience as he does, but you know, we all have some experience in something, and when we share that experience with other people, it's a great opportunity to share knowledge of what makes us successful and spreading good advice for individuals who are wanting to take care of fish, wanting to propagate fish, because breeding fish is a hobby, and many people want to enjoy the raising and seeing the babies. And I know Sandy's having a great time. She was with us. I don't know if she's still with us, but Sandy loves it. She's got some rams that are now laid eggs, and they were in the tank, and she wanted to move them over to another tank, and then didn't see it in time, and now they're in the community tank. And Michael, are you going to add the stream to the Fish Family calendar? I think it's there, isn't it? Jeff, that's where you posted it. Yeah, it's there. I'm on the calendar. Yeah, 9 o'clock tonight. That anybody find me because of that? I don't know. That's good to know too. Now, last question. Did I miss it? Oh, thank you, Sandy. Hey, has there been anybody who raised a question that did not get it answered? Now, the moderators are supposed to let me know if there's something I missed. And I like your comment, Jeff. Reading a book that someone wrote that never kept fish, and I'll tell you why I chuckle on that, because I was looking for information. I told Malik, I says, I found three pieces of information on this fish, and you know what? You got to be very careful, because can you purchase Daphnia from me? Of course, yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, I have live foods and everything. But I'll go out the internet and I'll find some very specific words and it will say, this fish does this, and be sure to do that, and this is how it is. And then I go to another website and they say this fish is this, and this is how to do that, and it's like the same verbiage. Someone copied from the other one, and it's just the same rhetoric over and over again. And what I really find sad is I'm looking for something specific, and I'll find something that's just the same rhetoric on every species. And, not all egg layers, or egg scatterers, I should say, are exactly the same in how you approach breeding them. And the subtleties can be, but if you just have a stock answer, oh, they're an egg scatterer, so this is what you do in XYZ, and then in a second, I'm going to get a link for you. Okay. Are you talking about the fish fam? I should be on the calendar already for Friday nights. Yeah, it's very annoying, Roman, and because the problem is now I can't trust it. I don't know who to trust, because who copied who and who was the originator? I have no idea. Yes, North Aquatics. Yeah, we'll be back. We got more fish to deliver. But what we want to do is, we were talking about this. We dropped off the black rams to the Hamilton, and anybody interested in getting some black rams? I mentioned the other place, the Planet Aquarium, but also Hamilton Big Owls also has the same black rams from us. We made the deliveries this week, today, and so if you're closer to Hamilton, then please, if you're in Oakville, one, if you're in Hamilton, grab them from the other. But we were interested in knowing how well they do, and because we're keenly interested in getting top quality fish. We're tired of people getting fish and then having issues, but then all they do is complain that, oh, these people have bad fish. But that's what we don't want to happen. No, if there's a problem, we'll come fix it. Because sometimes we had a delivery where the whole batch died. And the entire batch died, within a day. And so, but when we looked into it, we found out that the employees were kind of new. They weren't good at fish keeping, and what they did to some of the things in the tanks killed off more than just the black rams, but killed off a lot of fish. And it wasn't our fault, you know. And another occasion, the whole tank got ick. Now ick is in the water. I mean, it can come from anywhere, but we've never had ick, and none of our people who've received our fish have ick. So when it happens like that, it's like, oh, that happens, you know. You lost the GBRs. Okay. The blacks came in. That's funny because most people can keep their GBRs alive, Sandy, but the blacks are a little more tough because they're a little more sensitive. But it just depends on a lot of factors. Like, how do you acclimate the fish? Did you acclimate them properly? What is the pH difference between the tank you were putting them in versus what was in the bag? And I think it was mentioned today that at Big Al's Hamilton, they go to a lot of steps to make sure the acclimation process on sensitive fish is done right. And I listened to I listened to James talk about it, and I was very happy that they go to all those steps, because it shows that they realize the importance of doing it right and then coming out victorious in the end, because the fish are healthy, the fish are right, and that's really good. So yeah, it was great meeting you, James. Yes, and so what we want to do is we're going to come back after the process. So sometime next week you'll get a call and say how did they do and everything, and then of course we'll pick up those other fish. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone, and it was a great opportunity to be together again. Some of you had questions and so forth, and a new fish database has potential. Okay, great. That's good to know what you were up to. Good night, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us in this fish room. And as you know, this is only a portion of the entire fish room. This is called the nursery, FishEZ, and so a lot of breeding of the many of the egg scatterers is done here. And yet, on the other hand, we have breeding done at the fish house, which contains angelfish, discus. We have probably 20 tanks with discus in them, large tanks, and we also have the pleco breeding all being done over at the fish house. And so there's a lot of plecos. So it's a pleasure to be with you, and of course stick with us on the future, and we will say goodnight now. And of all things, make sure that you enjoy your fish, you take care of them well, and they will bring you many lasting moments of pleasure. But above all, keep it real. Good night.